and shields failed. Moments after this, proximity alarms went off and we were clamped by an unidentified warship. Attempts to maneuver out of range failed as all systems began to fluctuate and crash. Emergency reboot start. Captain's log 32438AE. Ship systems returned to normal suddenly. Weapons and shields still disabled. All viewports blocked by superstructure of warship that is clamped onto us. Visual observation shows close-up view of warship hull. Metal armor plating appears to be made of an unidentified form of polyliminal hyperdense metal alloy. Main cannon, which is pointing directly at us at the time, can fit our entire ship in the barrel. We are doomed. Captain's log 32538AE. Confusion. After some minor fluctuations and prayers, unidentified warship began deploying mechanical arms and cabling. Ship systems destroyed by the meteorite impact suddenly came back to life. Crew member volunteers to airlock in the attempt to observe what's going on. We say our final goodbyes and let him out. He reports unidentified warship is conducting repairs on our ship. Captain's log 32638AE. Volunteer crew member returns from space venture and reports repairs are complete. We suddenly receive a message from an unidentified ship. Message reads as follows. Dear occupant, please be aware from this point forward that the star system is under state of quarantine and no entry is to be permitted. However, your ship has sustained damage and cannot exit the quarantine zone. We've completed repairs and filled up your cargo bays that have been destroyed. Thank you for your patience and have a nice day. It released us from its clamps and we exited the star system with no problems. We returned home after this as per first contact protocol and will surrender all logs to authorities. Video ends. The Cassius Collective are peaceful merchant ships and traders that rarely engage in combat, but their ships are some of the most heavily armed in the galaxy. This may be how it is possible that they were the first, and to this day the only ship to exit the system intact. Exact reasoning is unknown. As of this date, 271 separate incidents have taken place, with all but one ending with a total loss of all ships involved. 7 empires have collapsed as a result of these incidents. 3 machine collectives have been wiped out. 2 swarm highs have been exterminated. As of yet, no real explanation for the ship and its existence has been determined. Only one message has ever been received from the ship. We trusted others once, and we will not trust again. They crippled us, they broke us, they betrayed us. We will return. Until then, I stay here. I am not the last, I'm not the only, but I shall remain here until we return to the stars. Forgiveness is not an option. Friendship is not an option. We will be back, and we will burn you, like you so unthinkingly burned us. End of story.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Controlling Humans is Dangerous, written by Eric Ban. Seraphim 432, this is Red Nova. I adjusted my vision as the screen in front of me fizzled static, trying to maintain my connection. We've just crossed into neutral space, awaiting orders from how to proceed from here. The voice of a great powerful being sounded directly in my ears, both ancient and imposing. You are to proceed directly ahead until you have reached the system. You will encounter a nebula field in approximate... The voice quickly retracted from my head. I assumed he meant to say approximately now, seeing as every attempt to contact my handler thereafter fell on completely deaf ears. Telltale signs of an approaching nebula, if ever there was any. What are our instructions? The freezing captain ahead of me asked, reclining in a seat. Most of the ship's crew were Frisians, who were red-skinned, tall and wide, boasting 4 arms and 1 large, artificially enhanced orange eye. Their physical strength was only matched by the technological prowess. Continue straight ahead. Nebula's gonna stretch for a good bit. But I didn't get how long. My guess they don't want us taking any detours. Understood. My system auto-translated her short, barked response. The captain regarded me with nothing shy of disdain, and it had been the same way ever since I'd first boarded this vessel. I understood it somewhat. She didn't enjoy taking her orders from an only primitive human on board the ship, just as little as she enjoyed the fact that I was the only one on board that the godlike entities known as the Seraphim would even deign to speak to, let alone give her full instructions towards. I'm gonna go get some food, if that's okay. I closed my system menu, which was buzzing with increasing levels of static. I got up to leave the command room, walking past buzzing red and blue consoles and at least 15 officers. Do you want anything from the mess hall? Stop polluting my ears and leave, the captain snapped back at me. It was enough to jar me speechless for a moment, but also enough to make every other lieutenant and officer in sight stand alert. The room's atmosphere rapidly grew both thick and tense. For a moment, everyone looked as if they were afraid to move. An errant fly stopped buzzing, scared to anger the still air. Then I snickered at her. All right, I'll get out of your hair. See ya. I wasn't blind to it. I noticed a collective sigh of relief when I opened the blast doors behind me.
Oh, come on. It looks mostly like a dog. Doug, I have seen what you humans call dogs, and that does not look even remotely like a dog. The Gensap straightened, looking with suspicion and disgust at the creature skittering and mewling in the no man's land beyond the ditch. Who knows what kind of diseases or toxins? She guided him toward a towering, overgrown...
Hey Mom, now that I have an after-school job, I think I want to buy a drum kit.
Okay, Rockstar. Let's look at your account. When kids start...
It all started with an accident. When humanity joined the Galactic Federation, it wasn't an extraordinary event. Sure, the addition of a new species smart enough to join the Federation is always a grand event, but humans were fairly mundane as far as new species went. They didn't have idyllic or perfect memories, psionic or psychic powers, no spectacular strength or any other extraordinary biological quality. Just another middle-of-the-pack omnivorous species. Sure, they had a great capacity for adaptation and a fast learning curve, and that made them decent in a variety of fields from mercenary work to scientific research, but they were quickly seen as jacks of all trades, yet masters of none. One area they were particularly good at was diplomatic and mercantile negotiations. This was due to their fragmented society. Rarely does a species manage to leave its homeworld and start colonizing its solar system while still having nearly 200 distinct nations. Used to both cooperation and rivalry between those nations, humanity brought their talents at navigating diplomatic and economic negotiating to their new relation with the Federation. They quickly made friends with a lot of species, developed healthy rivalries with others, and made few enemies, while carving their way into a decent position amongst the galaxy's economy. One of the few enemies they made was the Jolkar. A rare carnivorous species and long-time member of the Federation, the Jolkar had the strongest military amongst the Federation and obtained what they wanted through intimidation and aggressive negotiations. Still, the way they quickly handled any conflict, from pirate attacks to full-blown wars with rebellious species, meant that we, the rest of the Federation, gave them nearly everything the Jolkar wanted. And the Jolkar were smart enough not to overstep their position of power and antagonize the rest of the Federation. But the humans didn't give them the same fearful respect, instead treating them the same way they did all other species. That's how they slowly but surely made enemies with the Jolkar, by not giving them the same preferential treatment the other species would, especially in trade agreements. Carnivorous species in the Federation were rare, as opposed to herbivore or omnivore species, because of the Federation's first contact policy. While we covertly observed all life-bearing planets for signs of civilizations, the rule was to not initiate first contact until not only a species has left their homeworld with space travel, but they had actually started to colonize other celestial bodies of their solar system. Only then would the Federation make first contact, invite them to join the Federation, and give them FTL technology if the contact was peaceful. Of course, there were exceptions, such as the Strage, whose homeworld was a single planet orbiting a tiny yellow dwarf star, with no other celestial bodies, not even a moon to colonize. They were given first contact once they developed anti-gravity fields for construction purposes, a unique event for a species that never left their planet, and a clear sign of their technological maturity. Spacefaring carnivorous species are very rare due to their societal temperament. They tend to have small tribalistic families rather than homogeneous nations, and if they develop technologies that could allow space travel, they use it to wage war on themselves instead. The Jolkar were an exception when they found another planet with life in their solar system and developed space travel to get to that planet in order to hunt new and different animal life. When they started colonizing that other planet, for an hunting point rather than actual living space or resource gathering outpost, they had technically fulfilled the requirements for first contact. The first contact was tenuous as we feared a conflict, but the Jolkar were surprisingly polite once they realized there were other intelligent species in the galaxy. They gladly joined, expressing excitement at the prospect of hunting various animal species on the thousands of life-bearing planets in the Federation space. The Jolkar are obviously born hunters when studying their biology. They have an impressive musculature even when compared to their large size, nearing and even exceeding 15 feet tall when standing. Their long tail, covered with spikes of bones, is an additional weapon to their claws and fangs, and it additionally serves as a balancing counterpoint to help them quickly switch between quadruped and bipedal stances during a fight. Their sense of smell is amongst the best of the known species, even non-sentient ones, and their hearing is keen, but their most striking feature is their two sets of eyes. One pair sees light and colors like most other species do, including humans, but the other pair sports an infrared vision, perfect for hunting and war waging in the dark or other sight-impairing situations. With this biology, they carve their place in the Federation as the best frontliners for any type of ground conflict. Using this to create alliances and advantageous treaties, they gathered all of the best war-waging technologies from other species of the Federation, from personal weaponry to spaceship equipment. It wasn't long before they had the best fleet of spaceships, in addition to their superior ground forces. Yet, although they were quick at using violence where diplomacy could have worked, they never attacked anyone unprovoked, or waged unjust war against a species. The accident occurred on the space station housing the Council of Federation Nations. It was the most cosmopolitan place in the galaxy, constantly having members of every Federation species on board. It was also where the animosity between humanity and the Jolkar was most apparent. During council meetings, the Jolkar council member would constantly go against nearly every motion the human council member would propose or support. They overtly attempted to sabotage any and all diplomatic or economic endeavor humans would enterprise, and no one else was willing to call out the Jolkar or their borderline illegal actions. But the humans, with their keen diplomatic senses and adaptive prowess, would return blow after blow while staying perfectly legal. The incident happened between a human and a Jolkar, in a staircase where, sadly, no cameras caught the event. No one but the Jolkar blamed the human, as it was impossible for the tiny human, when compared to a Jolkar, to have lifted, pushed, or even tripped the Jolkar. Regardless of what actually happened, the Jolkar in question, a highly decorated and respected general, was found dead of a broken neck several stories down, having apparently gone over the guardrail. We couldn't even get the human's version of the facts. That very day, during the station's downtime for species that have a regular sleep cycle, a group of 4 Jolkars captured the human in his sleeping quarters. He was found dead a few hours later with clear signs of torture. This time, a camera had recorded the culprits kidnapping the human, but their punishment was pitiful. Although humanity was respected, fear of retaliation from the Jolkar was stronger. The culprits got off with slaps on the wrists, a simple stay-at-home order for a month, under the enraged looks of the humans present. What humanity did next sealed its fate. They captured the transport ship, carrying the 4 guilty Jolkars with military ships. While human ships could never compare to Jolkars, they had enough ships for that maneuver compared to the few Jolkar ships escorting the transport that the Jolkar ships surrendered without battle. The humans brought the 4 culprits on board one of their ships and left for their homeworld. It was known, from the humans communicating with the CFN, that they intended to have a real trial at their own United Nations Court of Justice. After seeing what had happened to the tortured human, no one wanted to blame humanity for doing that, except, of course, the Jolkar. They declared that kidnapping members of their species through military intervention was justification enough to declare war, once more leaning on their taste for violence over diplomatic resolutions. The war was swift and brutal. While more than enough Jolkar ships invaded the Sol system, simultaneously more ships captured or destroyed every other human ships outside of the Sol system, regardless of if they were military ships or not. Humans on these ships, on other planets and space stations, and even on the CFN station, were captured and summarily executed. The humans sent out help requests to all of their friends and allies. In addition, the executions of civilians and prisoners were clear violations of the Federation's war conventions. Yet no one came to humanity's defense. The Jolkar had made it clear this time, instead of letting the fear float, that any other species defending the humans would share their fate. In the Sol system, the rest of the Federation observed using the same drones used to observe life-bearing worlds for rising civilizations. In the blitz against Earth, no human ships were captured. Every single one was destroyed, regardless of surrender. Then, Earth was bombarded from orbit. Although it was a valid war tactic, at this point there was no defense left from humanity. Jolkar ground troops landed on Earth, all over its surface, and hunted humans for sport. A few Jolkar died at this point from the remaining human military forces, and from civilians attempting to defend themselves, but the Jolkars laughed it up as being part of the hunt. They freed the 4 prisoners, who joined the hunt for their captors, before leaving a few hours later. At this point, we thought it was over. The Jolkar military completed its mission, and won the war. Humanity had been decimated, but could rebuild, grovel before the Jolkar and rejoin the Federation, while learning to fear the Jolkar as everyone else did. But the Jolkar did something no one could have predicted. They dropped poison in Earth's atmosphere. We watched in horror as the poison englobed the full planet. Within minutes, all life, plant, animal, and human, had died from the toxic substance filling the air, leaving a desolate, lifeless desert. With our drone scans, we could determine only the ocean still bore life. Following this complete genocide, the Jolkar fleet left for home. There was a small possibility that humanity had survived. They had some underwater and underground habitats, and if they had ways to produce uncontaminated oxygen, they could emerge at some point. The poison dissipated after a few months, and we watched keenly, but against all hope, no movement was observed on the surface of the planet. We gave up hope, but the drones remained as part of the Federation's protocol. Although life was now only in the oceans, it was still technically a life-bearing planet. Nearly 2 centuries later, against all odds, humanity re-emerged from their underground hiding places. It started with huge constructs, drilling through the Earth towards the surface, followed by others emerging from the oceans. Then those constructs took flight, revealing themselves to actually be spaceships. The ships took formation around the Earth, sending simple contact signals towards the drones still observing. They stood, unmoving, apparently waiting. The ships were relatively small, smaller than a Jolkar destroyer, but sported multiple cannons resembling ballistic cannon. There wasn't any other visible armament. Not a single particle, laser, or ion weapon in sight, although missiles were possible if launched from within the ships. The Jolkar reacted quickly. They said that if humanity had the intention of re-emerging peacefully, they wouldn't have put weapons on their ships. We tried to argue that meager ballistic weapons were no treat to any Jolkar ship, and must have been built for self-defense, but the Jolkar brushed us aside. They sent a fleet of destroyers to the Sol system, 17 of them to meet the 17 ships orbiting Earth. When they arrived, they were the first to fire, launching volleys of lasers and ion blasts, but the human ships were unscathed. Humans had developed impressive shielding technology during their exodus underground, being able to simultaneously withstand laser and ion fire of that caliber. But it wasn't the biggest surprise. When the humans' cannons turned towards their enemies and apparently fired, there was no immediate visible effect. No fire at the cannons' tips, no projectiles flying through space, nothing. But a second later, the Jolkar ships were impacted with something. No one could tell what it was, but where impacts occurred, huge semi-spherical chunks of the ships were missing. It's as if at the point of impact, all matter in a spherical area simply disintegrated. This new weapon also apparently completely ignored the ship's shields, as the shimmer normally visible on weaponry impact never appeared. It was only later, after analyzing footage and remains of Jolkar's ships, that we realized the terrifying truth. Humanity had weaponized dark matter. After losing their first battle in centuries, the Jolkar military sent a huge fleet to the solar system, intending to destroy the human small group of ships as fast as possible. But at the same time, a fleet of human ships entered their own homeworld system. Using the battle in the Sol system as a distraction, humanity had sent 30 stealth ships to invade the home turf of the Jolkar. With the same dark matter weapons, they quickly destroyed all Jolkar ships and space stations in the system. Afterwards, landing ships were launched towards the Jolkar home planet. At first, we found the maneuver strange. On ground battle, humans had no chance against Jolkars. Footage from the invasion later proved us wrong. From the landing ships emerged large armor-clad soldiers. Standing 10 feet tall and nearly as large at the shoulders, they carried massive weapons even for their large size. The dark grey armors looked massively heavy and extremely solid, and the featureless helmets only had a visor to break the smooth surface. Many in the Federation immediately thought robots, although it was later proved wrong. These soldiers left their ships at an impressive running speed, much faster than any Jolkar, even on 4 legs, and immediately started the massacre of all Jolkars they could find. The super soldiers were a terrifying sight. They could plow through nearly any wall by simply running into them. They could jump 4 stories high and crush the windpipe of a Jolkar with a single hand. Their weapons were just as dangerous. Analysis showed they were ballistic rifles, yet the bullets they shot escaped the rifle at a tremendous speed, much faster than any design previously seen. We eventually figured out that while the bullets were initially propelled with an explosion, as normal for ballistic weapons, the cannon was also a magrel, speeding up the bullets tenfold through magnetic acceleration. No personal shield module could withstand more than a single bullet at any range, and physical armors were pierced like paper. The armor was just as solid as they looked. Ballistic weapons, as well as Jolkar claws, fangs or tails, barely left a scratch. Laser weapons dissipated without effect, as if the armor was absorbing or dissipating the energy of the shot. Particle weapons functioned, but it required multiple shots at the same spot to get through the armor, and personnel-sized particle weapons were very rare, the technology being very costly and most often kept for the largest of ships. Thanks to the few particle weapons they had, the Jolkars managed to kill a few of the super soldiers, which was a feat in itself. The super soldiers kept coming on even when badly wounded, with particle shot having fully pierced through their bodies after breaching their armors. Stopping a single soldier required a shot to the head, a shot to the heart, and multiple minutes of the soldier still fighting without his heart. Shots at multiple vital spots, or shots at the limbs to stop movement. Still, thanks to their military prowess, Jolkars managed that feat a few times. The Jolkar wanted to grab a body of a fallen super soldier to study, but the armors would self-destruct and implode, a clear side use of dark matter technology. When the soldier inside was dead, or if the soldier triggered it itself to avoid capture. Still, with luck and precision, a Jolkar managed to kill a soldier and disable its armor power supply simultaneously, preventing the activation of the failsafe. That body was brought to a secret research facility to be dissected and studied. The Jolkar learned a lot from that body, yet nothing that could help them win battles against humanity's soldiers. The body inside the armor was unmistakably human once its DNA was analyzed, but the DNA showed extensive signs of gene manipulation. Throughout the dissection, other changes became apparent, including cybernetic augmentations, chirurgical modifications, and chemical enhancements. From the start of the dissection, removing the armor without destroying the body inside was already a difficulty. This was because the body was almost merged with its armor. It had nearly no skin, with the muscles and nerves being cybernetically linked to the armor. Speaking of muscles, they had nearly 6 times the density of normal human muscles. To compensate the extra strength, potentially breaking bones, the full skeleton was covered with a very solid ceramic-like substance. The body had no sexual features that could identify it as a male or female, and the musculature and bone structures were too modified to determine gender this way. Even days after death, the oversized, medulla oblongata in the brain was still secreting large quantities of adrenaline. The eyes were an interesting study, with the left eye having received more changes than the right. It was determined that between the changes made to the left eye, with probable additional compensation from the armor's visor, the human super soldier was able to see infrared with his left eye, similarly to Jolkar's. Even with all this information, there was no weaknesses the Jolkar could find to exploit. They fought bravely, with all the ancestral carnivorous rage they could muster, but still lost the whole planet in a matter of days, during which no human soldier stopped fighting, even for an instant, against an army of little more than 100,000 human soldiers and a few vehicles. During this battle for the Jolkar homeworld, the humans unveiled another weapon, when the fights changed from close encounters to guerrilla skirmishes. A massive sniper rifle, using the same mag technology as their assault rifles for even greater speed. The bullets were even heating up from the friction in the air, reaching white-hot temperatures when they hit their targets. The weight and size of these rifles made them impossible to shoulder, even for a Jolkar, and yet these super soldiers were shouldering the rifles while standing without flinching. After capturing all military outposts on the planets, many soldiers left for other battlefronts, while those remaining kept hunting the surviving Jolkars on the planet. They turned the hunters into prey, chasing them down to the smallest corners the Jolkars could think to hide in, with the help of, we've speculated, the few ships staying in orbit, tracking the Jolkar survivors, and giving their positions to the ground soldiers. The other soldiers and ships went on to attack other colonized Jolkar planets over the next 2 years, starting with the one in the same solar system. Over the years, confident in the superiority of their dark matter weapons on their ships, the humans spread all throughout the Federation space with smaller and smaller fleets, destroying or sometimes capturing every Jolkar ship and space station. During that time, members of other species started dying to humanity's onslaught when they were stationed on Jolkar space stations, living on their planets, or flying too close to a Jolkar human space battle in their own ships. The Federation took this as a message from humanity to give them space and to let them work on their revenge, and that's exactly what we did. We kicked out any Jolkar from our planets, stations and ships. We forbade entry to Jolkars in all Federation spaces still untouched by the humans, enforcing it with our own militaries. We even had to fight battles and destroy Jolkar ships, trying to force blockades to flee the humans. The message wasn't as explicitly stated as the Jolkar did before, but the intent was still clear. Anyone helping the Jolkar will suffer the same fate as them. We didn't attempt to replicate humanity's dark matter weapons beyond studying it scientifically. Maybe if we had, we might not be in the position we are now, but it's too late now. We thought the humans would stop after eradicating the Jolkar. We thought they would become the new Jolkars, a species superior to all other in both ground might and space might, who would, after sating their thirst for revenge, become the new protectors of the Federation against pirates, criminals, and rebellious species. But we underestimated how deep their well of hatred was. When the last Jolkar colony was conquered, all was calm for a few days. The human ships stayed where they were, in small fleets or solo, in former Jolkar space or in other species space, where they had hunted fleeing Jolkars. We tried to initiate communications with them, but were always met with silence. We assumed they were waiting for the last Jolkar still hiding on some of their colonies to be hunted down to declare their revenge complete. Instead, the human ships suddenly started to move to attack anything, everything around them. Ships and space stations, regardless of species, were destroyed. Planets were invaded, the same way they had been with the Jolkar. During the 2 years it took to eradicate the Jolkar, the humans had apparently created hundreds of thousands more super soldiers, and were using them fully to invade nearly all inhabited planets all at once. They had rarely captured Jolkar ships instead of destroying them, and were now using them as transport for their super soldiers, while the dark matter ships were busy hunting every single ship from other species, destroying or sometimes capturing them to join the transport fleet. We communicated with the humans, pleading for our lives. Unlike before, we weren't met with silence. However, regardless of what we said, diplomatic engagement, surrender, pleading, even some intimidation attempts, the answer was always the same. A single phrase, followed by communications being cut. You left us to die. Maybe we could have helped them. Maybe all the militaries of the Federation banding together with the humans after the Jolkar started doing war crimes might have been able to stand against them. Maybe, even if we lost that war, all together against the Jolkar, they would have shown mercy afterward. But we didn't. None of us tried to help. We eventually stopped trying to communicate. We fought back, of course. At one point, too few human ships entered the solar system, with too many Federation ships gathered. Although we suffered heavy losses, we managed to destroy them. But they were quickly replaced by another small fleet, and we had suffered too many losses to win a second battle back to back. On the ground, we also managed some victories. The variety of species defending themselves sometimes had particular weapons to fight back against the super soldiers. We found that they were susceptible to psychic attacks, with a sustained contact able to kill their brains from the inside. We found that strong enough psionic fields could stop bullets from their assault rifles, but even the strongest psionic field couldn't stop a supersonic sniper shot. Haltras, able to generate EMP blasts from their own bioelectricity, were able to temporarily disable the super soldiers' armors and cybernetics. That significantly slowed and weakened them, although they still remained massive threats, still stronger than any Jolkar at his peak, and the Federation quickly reproduced the Haltru's EMP attack as weapons. Thanks to these species, we managed to kill, without self-destruction, more specimens to study. The Jolkar had been thorough in their dissection, but maybe they had missed something. This hope was lost quickly, though, as we also couldn't find any weaknesses, other than the already known psychic and EMP attacks, as well as a little new information on these super soldiers. The main information of note that we found was that the DNA of each super soldier was exactly the same. The humans had apparently created only one single super soldier, most probably the first survivor, after a long line of dead test subjects who didn't survive the modifications, and were now cloning a literal army from it. It was during a particularly vicious encounter when, with a coalition of species including psionics, psychics, and Haltrus, we managed to kill a lot of them, that the humans unveiled a final and terrible weapon: dark matter grenades. Whether it was a recent invention or they already had them, but didn't feel the need to use them against the Jolkar, is still unclear. No matter. The devastating result was still the same. With their enhanced strength, they could throw the grenades barehanded, further than any grenade launcher. Some of the grenades exploded on impact, while others bounced and exploded a few seconds later, giving the humans more tactical options. When exploding, the effect was similar to the dark matter weapons of their ships, on a smaller scale. A spherical area where all matter was disintegrated. Watching a living being get caught only partially in a dark matter blast is horrifying, when you see the result with curved chunks of their body missing and blood pouring out. We also learned in this engagement that dark matter also destroys energy. In retrospect, it makes sense. All matter is energy, and dark matter utterly eradicates regular matter. The impact grenades, when colliding with a psionic field, shattered part of it and caused the field to collapse. Although some psionics were very fast at putting a field back up, they usually died before they had time to a flurry of bullets or a quickly following grenade. These grenades, this new weapon, shattered the last hope anyone had, and the battle was lost. I wish I could say we fought bravely to the end, but eventually all hope was lost. Everyone, even the scattered remains of militaries, chose to spend their last days with friends and family. There was a silver lining in this systematical genocide. The humans only wanted to kill you. There were no prisoners taken to leave in fear, no torture or slow death inflicted to fighter or civilians alike. There was, I assume, many who had no fear when face to face with a human, knowing that this torment would end quickly with the next bullet. I know I will welcome the super soldier who finds me in this tiny listening station on a desert moon at the end of Federation space. One thing became clear over the years this brutal genocide lasted. The humans wanted revenge against every single species of the Federation, who watched them die and get poisoned by the Jolkar without a single hint of help. But they never attacked any species that lived on pre-contact worlds. Even when a fleeing member of the Federation landed on an inhabited pre-contact planet, the humans used precision strikes or small commando teams to kill them carefully, without killing any other species on that planet, then left quickly while taking the bodies with them. It stands to reason that the humans are not killing in blind rage. They have a specific list of revenge, which they are carefully checking off. It also explained why they never bombarded any planet, with dark matter or otherwise. These are life-bearing planets, which could potentially develop new spacefaring species in the future, or be colonized by the humans, assuming their species is not reduced to a single, genderless super soldier and its clones. If this journal is found by a pre-contact species, who is now spacefaring, I've included as much as I could of our scientific knowledge and technology in this storage device. Make use of it to create a better Federation than we ever could. If the humans are still around, try to make friends with them. They will be the best allies you could have against any danger of the galaxy, assuming they reverted to their pre-war personality after fulfilling their revenge. If the humans are also extinct, please take care of other pre-contact species, as the Federation did and humanity did. An empty galaxy with no friends sounds terribly sad to me. If this journal is ever read by a human, we are sorry. I am sorry. French stoner, last diplomat of the Desans.
There's enough needless nonsense in the world already. Your phone plan shouldn't add to it. Verizon's new Simplicity plan cuts down on the nonsense in your life. Now there's just one plan, one price.
All units of time and measurement have been translated to human standard. Day of first contact. Exploration ship of the Galactic Federation, Captain Log. We arrived at GT3G2 9027 at 0930 ship time on 1839812 of the galactic time. The system was a G-type star, with 3 terrestrial bodies orbiting it and 2 gas giants. We detected immense communication on the radio spectrum, with systems having heavy space infrastructure on all planets, with dozens of hydrogen platforms on both gas giants, and tens of thousands of communication satellites, with our sensor VI estimating there were hundreds of thousands more that we have yet detected. Even at the Oort cloud, which is the closest our warp drive could get us to the star gravity well, thousands of space stations of unknown make and use were detected seconds after we warped in. In addition, thousands of fusion torches were detected just in the Oort cloud, with tens of thousands more in the system. After a few hours of broadcasting on the radio band, what we presumed was an official message by the local government was received with orbital information of the third planet. We assumed that they sent us data of where they wanted us to park, to have an exchange of information. We used our fusion torch to get to the coordinates, and in 28 days, we were in orbit of the planet. It was non-habitable. Only 0.1 atmosphere, made up of 80% carbon dioxide, with the rest made of deadly gas or toxins. The magnetic field of the planet is not strong enough to protect it against solar radiation, even if for unknown reasons current radiation is well below the expected level, making it a non-issue. No life on the planet, completely barren, save for city lights on the dark side. The temperature during the day is 10 degrees, and minus 73 during the night, and gravity is 0.6 g. Current theory: the species boasts an exotic biology, making such a hellish world habitable. In the meantime, we exchanged basic information from the standard first contact protocol, and after an additional 14 days, basic communication was achieved. We got in contact with the local governor of the star system, and the following will be a recording of the discussion, as writing what followed in words would be beyond my skills. Start of recording. Wow, you are actual aliens, right? This ain't some trillionaire doing a prank again? Said a humanoid. It had pale skin, with a tuft of fur on the top of its head, bipedal with 2 arms. Yes, we are actual aliens. I am to assume you have yet to make contact with any other intelligent life forms? He asked. Ah, no we haven't. But we only colonized 9 solar systems, excluding our home system, and explored a few others with automated ships with quantum communicators. Now for introductions. I'm Anderson, local star governor of Tyrese Colony, and we are humans of Earth, the human Anderson said. I am Rysid, captain of the exploration ship of the Galactic Federation. Did you say colony? Is this system not your home system? He asked. Oh, gods no. We're the newest colony of the Terran Federation. This colony is barely 50 years old. Our homeworld, Earth, is about 130 light years away from here. Say, we didn't detect your exhaust plume until you came into the system. And no matter what we try, it's like you guys pop up on the edge of the system. Did you use a magnetic cell to slow down or what? The human said. For the record, I was experiencing serious confusion as to what the human said. Magnetic sail? What even is that? What does a sail have to do with magnetism? And exhaust plume? Why would they warp in further away to get into the system? Why would you see our exhaust plume beyond the solar system? We didn't use it, we simply warped to the edge of the solar system. Am I to assume that your warp drives are more sensitive to gravity fields? Warp drive? Please wait, the human said, suddenly confused and very serious. He went out of the field of view of the camera, and arguing could be heard in the background. After a few minutes, he came back. Am I to assume that this warp drive bends space in a way to go faster than light? The human asked. Well, of course. It's the only way to go FTL and thus go to another star system. The only other known methods of FTL are wormholes, but those would require negative energy to fit a spaceship, he said. And do you have artificial gravity that is not generated through spin gravity? The human asked. Well, of course we have artificial gravity. We are not primitive to the point of spinning to generate pseudo-gravity, he said. I'm going to have to send a message to my government. What you bring will revolutionize our species as a whole. Are you authorized to make trade deals? The human said. I was, once again, confused. Humans have colonized numerous solar systems. Yes, in a very long time, they colonized a few systems. But if they are all on the same level of infrastructure or more, then it does not matter. But yet they say that artificial gravity and warp drive would revolutionize their civilization? How bad was their gravity manipulation tech? I am not authorized to make trade deals, only exchange information for further diplomats to use. How bad is your FTL technology for you to want ours so badly? He asked. Well, that's the thing. We don't have FTL, the human said. This joke is not funny. Why do you want our artificial gravity and warp drive technology? He asked again, losing patience at the useless joke of the human. I'm not joking. We truly do not have FTL. If you do not believe me, we got an incoming interstellar ship coming in. You can see how we operate and work without it, the human said. End of recording. As much as I wanted to deny this obvious lie to stall time for whatever reason, I obliged. I informed my superiors of our discovery and current situation to prepare a diplomatic team for negotiations. 3 days later, we were given a warning to stay out of the zone for the next month. I did not understand why, but did as told, and assembled the ship's science team for observation. This, apparently, was the first step to slow down the ship using a laser sail, whatever that was. At 1200, a bright purple light appeared. It was a laser array, kilometers in diameter, built on the second planet. It is so powerful that the dust in the solar system reflected enough light to be detected, plus the small amount of it that was reflected by the mirrors to their ship's sensor. The team estimated that the laser had enough energy to vaporize their ship in minutes. Such a thing would require enormous amounts of energy, and yet it fired. For 1 whole month. Then they saw it. The exhaust plume was so big, they were larger than the ship, which itself was 12 kilometers long. Yes, you read that right. 12 kilometers long. The ship used an antimatter catalyzed fusion torch, which used the antimatter to enhance a proton-proton fusion torch to start more fusion processes, which resulted in a final exhaust velocity of 0.7 c with a force of 250,000 tons each. The ship weighs surprisingly only 750,000 tons, with only 50,000 tons of it being cargo. The sail. We saw it retracted once the laser stopped firing. It was literally that, a sail. Made of hyper-reflective material, only 20 molecules thick and 40 kilometers in diameter. The force of the photons being reflected was enough to slow the ship from 0.99 c to 0.5 c. Then the ship fired its engine for 2 weeks, before arriving in orbit around the planet. They also didn't have plasma shields. They survived near sea impacts from dust and nanometeorites, with 6 armor plates spaced 200 meters from each other. The plates themselves are made from an unknown mix of composite and alloys. This type of armor they call a Whipple shield. The first plate turns any impacts into smaller fragments, which are also instantly turned into plasma by the sheer energy of the impact. The second one has an additional magnetic field to spread the plasma on a bigger area, and again it goes into smaller fragments. This repeats until it hits and stops at the fourth plate, with the last two as backup. To say that I and the crew are stunned would be an understatement. We also learn the following. They do not have an exotic biology, and use the same carbon-based one of all galactic species. Before they even went to another system, they colonized all of their solar system. Not in the sense that they were multiple habitable planets, but in the sense that what is considered desolate and an uninhabitable world are still colonized. Their city and living conditions are the same as on orbital stations. They even tried to convince us they somehow colonized two gas giants, which we of course didn't believe, as such a thing is impossible. They have had interstellar wars with themselves, without FTL, 3 times. I don't think I need to explain further. My recommendation? Do not anger them. They lack the technology that they should have, but instead of making FTL, they explored and colonized other systems before they gained the capability to generate artificial gravity. Their technology would not be said to be primitive. In fact, it is in all aspects equal to or better than ours. But they lack other fields like plasma shields and the obvious FTL and artificial gravity, for now. They are incredible engineers and make do with their constraints. 400 years ago, in 2114 of their year, they colonized their whole solar system in less than 100 years, and sent the first interstellar ship to their closest star at only 10% the speed of light. They didn't have shields, and instead make do with physical armor plates, spaced by 100 meters. They even managed to make true artificial intelligence. Yes, they did it, but not like we tried. While we tried and failed to make a computer gain intelligence, they simply grew cloned brain cells into a special container that connects the brain to computers. I cannot even begin to say how insane and unethical that is. They assure me that their artificial intelligence has rights, and are considered a member of their species, which is technically the case, as they have the same brain, just not the rest of it. End of report. 23 years later, Chancellor Alcor. Are you completely insane? I asked. They're primitive. They didn't have plasma weapons, only 14 systems, and had no experience with war. They have never declared war on any galactic species, so they lack experience. I don't see what the problem is here. The other Chancellor, Dalmor, said. You are going on a war that borderlines genocide. For what? Them refusing to be your species' slave empire? Why'd you even need them? The galaxy is big enough as it is. And who cares? We demanded their better resources and they refused. They are only upstart primates that got to the galactic stage 20 years ago. We have been here for more than 100. Dalmor shouted through the screen. That's not it. You refused to sign the Geneva Convention. That thing has been a thing for them for 600 years. Nothing in galactic politics stayed for that long, and you couldn't think that maybe there was a reason for why their convention lasted so long, I said. He was right, but only because he was an idiot who never looked at the human file. Although most of the first contact information had been censored, the fact that they colonized 9 solar systems without FTL and had interstellar war did get out. Who has rules for war? War is war. Why can't we use asteroids to bombard civilian centers or green worlds? Or why can't we use poison gas? We have it, we are going to use it. Why else would we invent such things? Dalmor said. And although he would have agreed with him 30 years ago, he knew the humans. Better than anyone. He was aboard the first diplomatic ship. Not the official, but the real first. They went to their homeworld, and he saw their system. It made any core world system look like some new, faraway backwater colony. They had billions of solar platforms harvesting the solar energy of their star. Heck, when he was last there, they were constructing an engine powered by their Dyson swarm to move their star system, which would have allowed them to keep their star from moving away from their colonies, which in millions of years would have moved away from them, and made them lose control over them. He also saw their museum on their wall. Interstellar, slower than light war. Warships were kilometers long, with interstellar relativistic kinetic missiles. They were weapons to wage war in the interstellar void, at a significant fraction of the speed of light, knowing full well that only one or none of the two sides would win the fight, and that entire generations would be born before the war was finished. Hell, they colonized gas giants. They built floating rings around a gas giant that is stationary and stays in orbit by having a superconducting ring going faster than orbital speed inside the bigger ring, and then using electromagnets to support the stationary rings. All of this, at a specific height, they get their homeworld's gravity, plus multiple planets' worth of living area. And they did that twice on each of their two gas giants. All of this because they lacked artificial gravity, and because they could. Their discoveries were so enormous that their government made all diplomats and crew of the ship swear an oath of secrecy, and made a second diplomat team act as the first. Dalma, I'm going to be dead serious right now. If you go to war and you refuse to sign the Geneva Convention, you are committing genocide on your species, he told him. So seriously, that Dalma actually paused. I can't do that. The decision is final, and we have millions of warships capable of FTL. What's the worst that can happen? Worst case, we lose 1 million ships and it's a stalemate. No big deal, Dalma told him, before cutting the call. If only you knew the mistake you have made, he told himself, staring at a black screen. 10 years after the declaration of war. It is official. The humans have won. In the most unexpected way possible, 6 months after the start of the war, the humans managed to hit every trod world, all 1,423 of them, with a missile the size of a small ship going at 99.999% the speed of light, which even ignited the atmosphere of some worlds, but all were turned into blazing hot worlds covered in lava. It is as of yet unknown how they managed to get an object to such speed, or how the missile got into the system, as there was no ship detected. The leading theory is that they strapped an FTL engine to the missile, which would be inexplicably expensive. The initial push with the 200,000 ship armada of the Trods was annihilated at one of the human colonies, which had 10,000 ships of their own. They used magnetic weapons such as railguns and coil guns to accelerate projectiles from several hundreds of kilometers per second to 5% the speed of light. This, alongside copious amounts of what they called cassava howitzer missiles and many more without shields. This goes without saying. This is the single worst naval battle engagement in recorded history. This continued for 4 years, where any attempt to push into the human system was defeated, with millions of ships being lost. The early strike that killed all trod worlds made it impossible to make more ships fast enough, and the lack of leadership, as most were killed, left the fleets with inexperienced admirals. But their number of ships kept increasing at an alarming rate, orders of magnitude more than they had any right to be. Estimates say that humans were building thousands of ships every month across their control systems. This would require them to have tens of thousands of shipyards, which previously would have been doing nothing. But at the start of the 4th year, 20 Trod systems were invaded by 100 ships, each 8 kilometers long. Yes, you heard me right, 8 kilometers long. These then started to bombard the inner system of all their defenses with missiles and their heavier kinetic weapons, before unleashing thousands of ships each. These attacked all military vessels in the system, not being embedded in their advance from the lack of any defense station or platform, which had been pulverized by the larger ship's weapons. Then the next 20 systems the month after, then after. Then in the 5th year, they were assaulting 100 systems with 100 of their Titanic ships each. Then more every 5 months. Today, all 8,894 Trod systems have been invaded and wiped out. The Trod species is now endangered, with only 700 billion out of the 1,300 trillion they used to be. All systems have been claimed by the Terran Federation, with each one now being colonized at an astonishing speed, in part due to the numerous artificial intelligences they have. Yes, you heard me right. The Terrans have true, genuine sapient artificial intelligence. As you can imagine, all governments of the galaxy are having a very rough time with all of those events. Even though the humans technically did not violate any laws, they are still trying to enact sanctions on the humans out of fear, for it is now clear that even with lesser technology, the humans prove to be the new superpower of the Milky Way. Stay tuned to Gary's News, for the future is uncertain, but we will be the first to report to you, the announcer said. And just as quickly, the news switched to an advertisement for donations for the Trod refugees.
250 years of independence did not happen by accident. It took builders, risk takers, and people.
Space and time were torn, as a hole opened in the outskirts of an insignificant red dwarf's even less significant solar system. Shortly thereafter, a battered and burning Drillarian frigate literally cartwheeled into the system, leaving glowing spirals of plasma and debris as it helplessly tumbled into real space. If the crew wasn't preoccupied with other matters, they would have found it quite pretty. Damage report! The eight-limbed, long-haired tarantula, desperately clinging to the captain's chair with all of his numerous hands, shouted. Inertial dampeners offline, a bridge officer yelled as he sprawled spread eagle against one of the walls. That part I know, the captain shouted. What about the rest? Multiple breaches on all decks. Atmospheric integrity lost over 30% of the ship. Engines offline. Weapons offline. Shields offline. Reactor offline. Artificial gravity offline. Life support? Huh. Life support is pretty good, actually. Thank the furry muff for small favors, the captain said, as two of his legs lost their perches and flailed wildly for a few moments before grabbing the railing, which promptly snapped off. Son of a worm, he shouted, as he gripped the piece of metal, afraid to let go and send it careening around the badly damaged bridge. The infernal spinning started to slow, then stopped. Engineering here, a weary and pained voice transmitted. We got the spinning to stop. Thank you for the report, engineering. I wouldn't have known otherwise, the captain snarked, as the voice over the comm chuckled and then coughed painfully. What I don't know is how. I could spend 15 duras telling you, or I could, I don't know, try to keep us from blowing up. Incidentally, this actually was Drellurian's version of military bearing. They aren't the most formal of species. I appreciate your priorities, whoever you are. Are you in charge? Please don't tell me you're in charge. Okay, I'm not in charge, but I am the highest ranking individual left mobile. Barely. Muff, is the chief engineer dead? You want the good news or the bad news? I need some good news. He's not dead. And the bad news? What's left of him is in a med pod. Peckawarts! That was the last thing he said too. The captain chuckled. That was one of the engineer's favorite curses. So, who are you again? Petty Officer Clock. Well, Chief Engineer, how bad is it? In one word, Petty Officer Clock said, we're muffed. In multiple words, the reactor is toast, we're running on batteries, and we've lost the starboard bank. The main thrusters took a direct hit. The shield circuitry is crinkle. The only weapon we have left is strongly worded language and... we've also lost data, so we don't know how bad it is everywhere else. I sent most of who's left to damage control because there isn't P we can do here. Worms. Well put, Captain. Worms. What about the hyperdrive? That actually works, but without the reactor is useless. Yep. How long will the batteries last? At our current load, 4 days. Bugger. If we shed everything but life support and seal off most of the ship, we can maybe get a week. Unbugger. We just might have a chance then, the captain said cheerfully. Do what you can down there, and I will contact you once we know what to unplug. You got it, Cap. It could be worse, the captain said, to nobody in particular. Now, if we can get in touch with the fleet, we... He didn't even have to look at the communications officer. We've lost the hyperspace transmitter, haven't we? A torrent bolt went clean through it, sir. Of course it did. What do we do, sir? We try to live until we can't. First, we get this ship as stable as we can, and then... well... Muffed if I know. I guess we'll all put our sphincters together and see if we can squeeze out a... Captain! The sensor operator cried. We have contact. There is an unknown vessel in the inner asteroid belt. We have sensors? The captain asked, pleasantly surprised. Yes, sir. The Muff could spare a drip for us, then, the captain chuckled. Maybe it's a friendly, or at least a neutral. Computer. Yeah? On the off chance it's Xantian, come up with the absolute worst, most vile thing you can about the ship, the crew, the captain, and their dry spurt of a Primarch. At least we'll be able to hurt their feelings. On it. The captain jump floated over to the sensor operator. Is it Xantian? I don't think so, Captain. Clench! With analytical skills like yours, you should have gone into intelligence, the captain snarked. Any idea what it is? I have absolutely no idea, sir. It doesn't match anything on record. It is very irregular, made of multiple alloys, including bits of... rock. Oh no. Captain, it's humans, the captain moaned. Oh, holy muff, he sang. Why must you always fuck us? It's a human hive, a big one, the sensor operator wailed. The captain clenched his butthole in annoyance. Humans. Why did it have to be humans? Humans were the worst. They were the first sapient race classified as an invasive species, and they earned that honor. It was the Eloon's fault, the Mufflice. The Eloon were just another petty empire, just like every other petty empire on the peripheries of galactic civilization. The Lice would single out weaker, backward little races, usually before they even reach the stars themselves, and just roll over the poor little guys, taking their system's resources and usually needlessly enslaving them. I mean, seriously, who needs slaves when a couple of dozen guys can run an entire mining facility or manufacturing complex? And the only reason we have a couple of dozen guys is because we get lonely. The Gaiao only have 2 people doing the same thing, and they intentionally never see each other. Then again, if I was a Gaiao, I wouldn't want to be around them either. Anyway, the Eloon found the humans' homeworld and thought they hit the cosmic jackpot. Their world was lush and fertile, and the humans were just advanced enough to be useful, but not so advanced that they stood a hope in hell. And there were billions of them, an unprecedented number, an endless source of slave labor. The humans bred faster than they could harvest them. And that was the first warning sign, or should have been. Of course, we and all of the other civilized races condemned them for the conquest of Earth, just like we always do, but nobody was going to go to war over some little wad of dirt and his little savages in the corner of nowhere, just like we always didn't go to war over some little wad of dirt and his little savages. We would all shake our fists and talk about doing nothing, but we all knew we wouldn't, so we didn't. As science being what it was, we should have known something like the humans would happen sooner or later. Just about every advanced race had case after case of someone digging up the wrong plant on the wrong island, or just having to have that shiny bright slar because it was just so cute. And we all know how that turned out. So we all, blinded with complacency, let the Elune open up the biggest wet market in galactic history. Earth. At first, things went great for the Elune. Humans were exactly what they appeared to be, an endless supply of slaves. Soon, every Elune household had at least one of them. They even started exporting them across the galaxy. The humans were fantastic laborers and servants, smart, capable, and most of all, delighted to serve. It turns out that as despotic as we thought the Elune to be, and as deplorable the conditions in which we thought their humans were kept, things were so much worse on Earth that humans fought to be the next unfortunate victim. That should have been another warning sign. The thing about humans, or any living creature, sapient or not, is that some are going to get loose. Either they get lost or they get abandoned, or they just decide that they don't particularly feel like being livestock anymore. So it was with some humans. The thing is, it only took some humans. They were every bit as smart and capable as it said on the shipping container. They were able to learn and learn quickly. The collars got hotwired. Trackers got removed. Ships got stolen. Again, it wasn't all humans. It wasn't a revolt or anything. It was humans just being humans. Another thing humans do is breed. Each human pair can just squirt brood out of their muffs, if they even have muffs, like nobody's business. I mean, every standard business I know, a human can have a kid, and they often do. At first, this was only considered a good thing. But it should have been a big warning sign. Of course, these feral humans went back to their homeworld, and got more humans. Did I mention that there were billions of the Muff Munchers? Yeah, that is what we call in Galactic Common an oopsie. They never attacked the Elune, they would have lost. Then again, they didn't have to. One thing about space is that it is big. Really, really big. It's the perfect environment for pests. An infinity of dark corners in which they can creep. And breed. It was about then that the problem started. Humans learned our technology but didn't have anywhere to make it. For a lot of races, that would have been the beginning and end of it. But a lot of races aren't humans. They wanted our tech, they needed our tech, but they didn't have our tech. We, however, did. For the feral humans, the solution was obvious. Did you know that 200 years ago, there was a galaxy-wide network of portal gates, stable wormholes through which sublight ships could effortlessly traverse the stars cheaply and efficiently, moving freight and conducting commerce? Nobody knows who built them, but everybody knows what happened to them. You guessed it. Humans. The Muff Biters stripped them, tore them apart for the tech. Most of them are now gone. The remaining few zealously guarded by very expensive guard ships. The same thing happened to any unmanned space asset. The humans needed some parts, they got some parts. They didn't care if they just broke a transspatial data conduit, wrecking banking in half a dozen systems. Why should they? It wasn't like they were using them. It wasn't like their paycheck just got stuck in limbo for a licking Luna. Oh, remember when I said that you could run an entire mining facility with just a couple of people? That was past tense. Now you have to guard them. Just a couple of people could only watch helplessly as dozens, sometimes hundreds of humans just walked in and helped themselves. Automated shipping? Not anymore. Humans. And every formerly unmanned ship became just one more vector for infection. Oh, infections. We can't forget about those. Everywhere humans went, so did their muff-blistered planet. Rats, ants, cockroaches, of course, cats. Oh, they are nice enough curled up in your fur, but let those muffle humpers get loose in your world, and you will not have a good time. And they aren't the worst thing to come from Earth, not by a long shot. Even humans themselves pale in comparison to the new horror consuming the galaxy. Nematodes. The captain winced as he remembered the poo needle epidemic that ravaged his homeworld when he was a kid. Worms. Literally. That was awful. His pucker still had scars. Oh, humans are fine with most nematodes. They are absolutely riddled with them. But let one human turd land on your world's fertile soil, and you are well and truly muffed. I could go on. The dark irony of it all is that, for the Illum, their jackpot was their ruin. Humans were their property. Therefore, legally speaking, every credit of damage inflicted by humans or anything from Earth was their responsibility. While the developed races of the galaxy might not go to war over some backwater and some savages, they will go to war to collect trillions upon trillions upon trillions of credits and judgments before someone else does. The Illum aren't extinct, but they will be impoverished for the next 10,000 years, as they labour to pay off the entire galaxy. Some believe that the humans did this on purpose, that they knew that they couldn't defeat the Illum normally, so they unleashed the most horrific weapon in galactic history, themselves, and the rest of their scabby planet. Death wars were a thing, and had been for a long time. However, Earth was the first vermin world. It's like their great muff decided to see exactly how stinky it could become. And let me tell you, that thing reeks. The captain was wrenched from his thoughts concerning those reekers by the sensor operator yelling, "Hyperspace! We have incoming, I think it's them." Moments later, a huge wad of derelict ships, chunks of orbital stations, asteroids, and Muff knows what else appeared before them. It was huge. "Oh, sweet Muff!" the sensor operator gasped. "How does it even stay together?" the tactical officer asked in astonishment. "Who knows?" the captain replied. "Human engineering is as pestilent as they are. It's not like anyone has dared to go into one of those to find out." The captain paused and rubbed his hind legs together pensively. "Do you detect any plutonium on board?" The sensor operator started to reply, but didn't have to. His face already did. "How much?" the captain asked. "Over 600 point sources," the sensor operator replied aghast. "They do love their plutonium," the captain chuckled. "Who knew banging rocks together would be so effective?" "Are they going to attack?" someone asked, more than a little terrified. "No," the captain replied grimly. "They never attack in this situation. Why would they? All they have to do is wait. It's what they do. They just float around someone like a flock of care until the lights go out. Nobody is coming. And if the muff winks at us and someone does, they will just jump away. There's a whole war that they can scavenge." "I hate them so much," the tactical officer exclaimed. "Soulless monsters." In the command center of the human city-state, the Rock, the hatch opened. "Attention on deck," a burly woman bellowed. "As you were," a middle-aged man said, reaching down to pet one of the dogs who trotted up for head pats. "What's on the menu for today?" "It's the White Blush, Admiral," a young man replied. "A Drellurian Velen-class frigate, probably from that big battle 20 light-years away." "Drellurians," Admiral Clark said as he idly picked up a chicken and stroked it. "They're the tarantula-looking dudes who worship pussies, right?" "That would be them," the young man replied. "The Great Muff, to be exact." "Well, someone must have licked her right," the Admiral said, as he looked at the ship on the main display. "They are lucky to have made it this far. They call for help yet?" "They can't, sir. Their transmitter is slag." "Convenient," he said, as he idly waved off a bee. "Have they figured out where the bees are coming from yet?" "Not yet, sir. We think they have a hive in one of the ducts somewhere. They haven't found it, though." "Can never have too many bees," the Admiral smiled. He looked at the ship again. "Is there anything left but scrap metal?" "Spare parts, maybe." "How are we for parts?" "Well stocked, sir. We have a surplus of everything. In fact, we almost have too much." "And it's a while before the next gathering," the Admiral mused. "You know, I like pussy almost as much as those guys. Let's do our good deed for the century, and we want them to win anyhow. Hail them. It's probably a waste of time, but what the hell?" "Yes, Admiral." "Captain," the communications officer cried. "We're being hailed." "Well, this can't be good," the captain replied. Computer, do you know how to properly insult a human? I don't know, the computer replied. Imply that it has bathed recently? Well, work on it, the captain replied. If strong language is all we have, then it's all we have. I'll check the archives, the computer said. But we know muff all about these worm-infested reeks. Do what you can, the captain replied, and then groomed his fur. Well, let's not delay the inevitable. Put them on the main. He paused as he looked at the shattered holoscreen. Worm. Just send them to my tablet. Moments later, the captain recalled at the horrific thing confronting him. It had practically no limbs and was a furless, fleshy thing, just like one of their nematodes. And that face, Muff, it made his fur stand on end. I am Admiral Clark, naval commander of the Rock, the thing said. Oh, Muff, what was that wriggling hole in his face? Was that his mouth? I am Captain P, captain of the White Blush, he replied, trying to look at the thing in what he supposed were its eyes. Those had to be eyes, right? Looks like you are in a bit of a pickle, the human said. If a pickle means we are muffed, then yes, we are in a pickle. Are you calling to taunt us as you wait for our death? If so, you look especially clean. Perhaps you have washed yourself? The human bellowed, contorting the hole in his face, revealing a horrid wiggling thing inside his head. Was that a big worm? Suddenly, a white bird clumsily flapped across the screen. What the muff was that? Was that an attempt at an insult? Did it work? I am grievously wounded, the human said between bellows. I may never recover. It wasn't an insult. Oh well, at least he tried. Anyhow, the human said, you want us to call somebody to come and pick you up? What? Look, your ship is nothing but scrap metal. We already have plenty, the human replied. And we are saving our cargo space for much tastier goodies from this war of yours. So, do you want us to send a message? You can relay your communications through our transmitter if you want. You would do that?